it's happened.
I'm Craig LeMoult. Tonight on Greater Boston, kids these days are growing up on social media. So far, that's come with greater mental health struggles and a permanent online record of their childhood, both the good and the bad. So what can parents and public officials do to keep kids safe online? Then New England winters are getting warmer and warmer. I'll talk to a meteorologist and an earth scientist and avid snowboarder about how rising temperatures are already impacting the state. And finally, Alex Alvar's roots are in his native Ecuador, but he spent decades in Boston's music scene, and now he's back for a reunion show with his band, Mango Blue. We'll get a little preview ahead. As rates of anxiety and depression rise among children, the Surgeon General is warning of the mental health impacts of social media. And a school district in California is even suing companies like Snapchat, YouTube, and TikTok over it. So what do kids and their parents need to know to be safe and smart online? I'm joined by Dr. Michael Rich, the director and founder of Boston Children's Hospital's Digital Wellness Lab and author of The Mediatrician's Guide, a joyful approach to raising healthy, smart, kind kids in a screen-saturated world. And Erin McNeil, the CEO and founder of the nonprofit Media Literacy Now. Thank you both so much for joining us.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Erin, can I start with you? Can you talk to us about the scope of the threat to children right now? What kind of impact can access to social media and the digital world have on kids?
Sure. You know, while media literacy and understanding media messages have always been important, right now we're handing devices to young people, children, that allow them to reach anybody at any time, and anybody can reach them at any time. So this is game-changing. This is creating some real risks that we have not provided any guidance or very little guidance and very little guardrails for.
What is the right age for a child to start with this kind of thing?
Well, I wouldn't want to weigh into that question, yeah, but you know, I think part of it is understanding how it's affecting us and having young people have some skills so that they can recognize maybe where should the balance be, and parents should know that too.
All right. Dr. Rich, you've been dubbed the Mediatrician. What does that mean, first of all, and what is the impact on the health of kids?
Well, a mediatrician is a pediatrician who is obviously focused on the health and development of children from infancy right through to young adulthood. And that is now happening in an environment that's dominated by screens. And so I've basically spent my professional career looking at the influence of the screens we use and how we use them on our physical, mental, and social health. And so that's what the Digital Wellness Lab is devoted to, and we are working not against, but actually trying to work with tech and entertainment companies to turn the Queen Mary, to have them have a second bottom line of the wellness of their users, not just how many clicks and eyeballs they get.
How can this be done better?
Oh, how much time do you have? It can be done better by remembering that we are all in this digital, physical environment together, that we are all going to need to put our skill sets to bear on exactly how we are going to live our lives, how we're going to relate to each other, how we're going to relate to the larger world, how we're going to teach and learn and communicate and connect with each other.
Erin, this is a time of great change with AI. Is that making a difference when we talk about young people and their interaction with digital media?
Sure. It's already been getting harder and harder to recognize what's real online, what's not, what's good information, what's a credible claim. And now we've got this sort of whole new world of artificial intelligence where we don't even know what the results are going to be on that. So, you know, while we're seeing some really kind of big risks already for kids, this is a whole new game. I'm not sure where it's going to take us.
What kinds of risks? What are the things that might happen as a result of AI and as a result of social media more broadly?
Well, yeah, social media more broadly. You know, there's just digital drama in the classroom. There's this sense of missing out. There's arguments about what information young people are finding online and not knowing how to check and see whether that is good information from a good source. And there's posting online maybe without people's consent. So we're seeing fights being posted. We're seeing just all sorts of problems in cyberbullying, for example, that can actually lead to, life-changing mistakes.
Yeah. Are you seeing the impact of the cyberbullying? Is that showing up more and more?
Well, I think problems directly related to the interactive media environment are showing up a lot, to the point where we've now had at Children's, since 2017, the Clinic for Interactive Media and Internet Disorders, and we are packed wall to wall with kids who've kind of gone down the rabbit hole of gaming, of social media, pornography, and what we call information binging, which is the endless YouTube, Reddit, Quora that these kids are using.
Mm-hmm. The media literacy program that you run put out a report analyzing state regulations and legislation around these. In Massachusetts, we do have laws surrounding this. Can you talk about what we have here, and does it go far enough?
Well, we would like to see media literacy integrated into every classroom, every subject area, K through 12, because this is essentially modern literacy. It's literacy for the 21st century. So to learn and to have the life skills you need media literacy. So we'd like to see that. Massachusetts recently has been making a lot of progress. Recently, the health standards that came out for health classrooms include a lot about social media awareness, healthy online relationships, that sort of thing, integrated into health classrooms. The social studies standards also address the issue. So we're seeing it in Massachusetts and really across the country. Recently, Indiana passed a very bipartisan bill that seeks to ensure that kids are getting the critical thinking skills they need to participate online.
Is Massachusetts going far enough? Would you like to see more in the state?
Oh, I'd like to see more, yes. Okay. I'd like to see.
What else should we see?
Teacher professional development, teacher pre-service training, and again, standards for every subject area. So that includes science, math, English.
Okay, great. That's what the states can do, what schools can do. What about parents? What does the Mediatrician have to say for parents about dealing with this kind of thing?
Well, first of all, I want to allay their fear. Right? I think there's a lot of fear-mongering out there, and no good decision is made out of fear. What we need to do is help parents feel comfortable in the digital environment, to learn with their kids, but to have it be an open dialogue from the moment they start using any screens at all. People often ask me, when should kids learn media literacy? And I say, the moment they start using media, because this is the way we communicate with each other now. But I think that we have to remember that parents are their first and best teacher to their children. And I usually encourage them to do what I call the 3 M's. Model the behavior with media that you want them to have. Don't be yelling at them about their video game while staring at your all-important smartphone. Right. Mentor them with it. So help them learn to use these very powerful tools. A smartphone is more than 1 million times more powerful than the computer that landed us on the moon. But to learn with them how to use these devices, sit down and play the video games with them, go on social media with them, and finally to monitor their use, have their usernames and passwords. The parents and the kids both push back against this. The parents, because they say, I don't have the time. The kids, because say, I need my privacy. But the reality is when it is an open dialogue, it is a place where they can parent in the digital space. And so when the kid comes across something that confuses, upsets, weirds them out, they know they can come to their parent, they don't have to hide it.
Yeah. Aaron, what about the responsibility of technology companies? Are they doing enough, and what else can they be doing?
I imagine they're not doing enough. Certainly there's more to be done, but I think those decisions are for the people to decide. We focus on the need for media literacy in the K-12 classroom, and I think that people, when they have these skills and they understand maybe the questions to ask and the way the systems work, the economic incentives, et cetera, they can have the tools and the understanding to make change and to participate in our democracy, where we have the right to seek the change that we want.
It's a fascinating conversation, and I'm so glad that we're having it here. Thank you so much, both of you, for coming and talking with us about this.
Thank you.
New England winters are not what they used to be, and that's already having some major impacts on the region, from flood risks to much shorter seasons for winter sports like skiing and snowboarding. To discuss, I'm joined by meteorologist and GBH News partner Dave Epstein and Elizabeth Burakowski, a research assistant professor at the Earth Systems Research Center and Institute for the Study of Earth, Oceans, and Space at the University of New Hampshire, not to mention an avid snowboarder. Thank you both so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Good to be here.
So, Dr. Burakowski, let's start with you. You, as you said, are, as I said, is an avid snowboarder or splitboarder, I think, as well. What has this season been like for you?
It has been very challenging to get out. As a snow researcher as well, I recorded my first December without any measurable snow at my field site here in Durham, New Hampshire. And that was pretty heartbreaking. To be able to get out and recreate in the snow has also been a huge challenge. I typically like going Nordic skiing out my back door, but this year has been a very small handful of days that I've actually been able to do that due to the lack of snow. In terms of backcountry conditions, so skiing not at a ski resort, but in the woods near the ski resort, that too has been a big challenge. There has not been a lot of natural snowfall, and it's seriously lacking in terms of big storms.
Yeah, and I know you're part of an organization called Protect Our Winters. Can you talk about what they do and you know, what's happening more broadly?
Yeah, I had gotten involved with them back in the early, 2010, I suppose, was the first time I worked with them. And we've been looking at changes in how climate impacts the ski industry. And we've been talking a lot with outdoor recreators in general, people who enjoy the outdoors and wanting to know more about how it's impacting their ability to get outside and enjoy the snow. And it's also, a lot about the economy. So in northern New Hampshire, a big chunk of our economic spending and visitor spending is coming from the ski resorts that are here. So when they have a tough year like this year, it has an impact on not just their bottom line, but also the local community as well. It has an impact on jobs, and it also has an impact on just the ability for people to enjoy winter in the way that culturally we've really had a great run doing that.
Do we know how bad the impact is this year on that industry?
I haven't seen the numbers out yet this year. Okay. They typically will announce that in June. It's going to be a challenge. I would say the December 2023 storm, it was a big rain on snow event that closed several ski resorts, is going to have a pretty decent impact. And unfortunately, I just really hope that next year is much better.
Dave, so far this season, we've seen 9.7 inches in Boston, right? That compares to an average of 34.6 inches for this date, up to February 21st, I guess. What's going on here? Is this the new normal?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on. Of course, we have the fact that the planet's warming up, and so there's pressure on New England to have less snow. Winter is the fastest warming season of the four. New England is bearing the brunt of a lot of that warming. There's also some natural cycles that occur. So if you look over all the years since 1872, we get these little pockets of about a decade or so where you have a snowy decade and then a not so snowy decade. So if you go back prior to 2016, that decade was very snowy. Actually, the snowiest decade on record in Greater Boston. Pretty amazing, not that long ago.
Well, if anybody remembers the winter of 2015, they know all too well that it wouldn't stop snowing then, but it basically hasn't snowed since.
Yeah, that's right. We've had many winters that have been below average since, more winters certainly below average. Last winter, topping out around a foot in Boston. This winter, if we don't see 11 inches, which is highly unlikely, we're going to end up with the first back-to-back seasons since 1872 under 20 inches. So there's definitely the climate piece as well as the natural cycle, both going on.
Yeah, and it's important to understand that there is a difference between weather and climate, right? But to what degree can we say that what is happening now is a result of climate change, Dave?
It's not really, that's not the language we kind of want to use, because you can go back to 1936-37 that had less snow in that winter, right? But what's happening is that the pressure is increasing that the type of winters we're seeing this year will become more frequent. So there's been winters in the past that are open and relatively mild, but the number of those winters is increasing and the number of snowy cold winters is decreasing. That's the difference.
Okay. Dr. Burakowski, I know your research focuses a lot on snowpack and climate. What are you seeing beyond just a bad ski season? What are you seeing this year?
We're also seeing a decline in soil freezing. So this was a really challenging year for snowpack in terms of how warm it was. We really didn't have a lot of days that were even below freezing. So we saw some interesting trends with soil frost. We're also looking at impacts that are on the ecosystem. So the loss of cold is important for invasive species. So hemlock woolly adelgid, for example, emerald ash borer, those affect our forest health. We also have impacts on maple syrup season, tapping earlier, having lower quality syrup. Those are also impacts that we're keeping an eye on. And in terms of what I look at in my research, I also look at climate projections into the future. And what we're seeing is that the winters like this, like David said, are going to become more common. Unfortunately, a lot of the models that I had been looking at, they weren't predicting models that were this snowless in the Northeast until many years later, like several decades out. So to see this type of winter now has me a bit on edge, a bit alarmed. I acknowledge also the El Nino Southern Oscillation, we're in an El Nino year, but we've had El Nino years in the past. And this year has just been off the charts in terms of the warming. When you look at Massachusetts, this is what their top 5, when it's in the top 5 warmest record winters. And then New Hampshire, New York, Vermont, we're all in, it was our warmest winter. And we haven't seen, like you had said, a cold winter colder than the long-term average since 2015.
I learned an interesting and an important word today that I did not know, which was albedo. Dr. Burakowski, can you explain that and what does that mean for our climate?
Yeah, so albedo is essentially the reflectivity of a surface. How much of the light that hits that surface is going to get reflected back out to space. It ranges from 0 to 1. Something like sea ice is going to be highly reflective, snow as well. So when you have more snow and more ice, you're going to reflect more of the sun's energy, and that helps to keep the surface cool. And when we don't have that, when you have a darker surface, such as a forest, such as open water, even grass, that's going to be a lot darker, and it's going to absorb more of the sun's energy. That makes things warmer. So the acceleration of snow loss that was recently identified in a study from Dartmouth, that was looking at a critical threshold of temperature beyond which you start having this snow cliff, right? So if temperatures in winter on average are warmer than 17.6 degrees Fahrenheit, then you're going to see a very rapid loss of snowpack. And I think that's what we're seeing here, and it's probably tied a bit to albedo.
So the snow reflects that light, that heat, and without it, we're just absorbing it into the ground. Okay. Dave, I know you're not a groundhog, but are we looking? Looks like we're looking at an early spring here, and that's not necessarily a good thing.
Yeah, it's definitely been, as Dr. Burke said, a much warmer than average winter. The lowest temperature Boston got to was 14. We've never seen a winter where the temperature has stayed that warm at night the entire season. I've got kale in the garden, which made it through the entire winter unprotected. It's already starting to grow. Soil temperatures are already warm. I planted peas already. They're under a little bit of plastic to protect from the moisture, but the soil's definitely really didn't freeze very much the entire winter. We had that 1 week around Martin Luther King week or day that was cold, but that's about it. So the winter that wasn't really is never going to get underway, and we're on to spring.
All right, well, hopefully there'll be better skiing next season. Elizabeth Burakowski and Dave Epstein, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Finally tonight, musician Alex Alvar's musical roots are in his native Ecuador. But Berkeley brought him to Boston, where he spent decades immersing himself in the city's local music scene before heading home in 2013. Now he's back for a reunion show with one of his local bands, Mango Blue. He joined Jim Braude and Andrea Cabral on Boston Public Radio to share his story and a song. Let's take a listen.
Alex, your story, your journey, and it literally is a journey from Ecuador to here, back to Ecuador. Absolutely fascinating. Your relationship with Michael, and then your collaboration, your long friendship. I want to know how you pulled Mango Blue together, but to the extent that you can weave in as much of your story into that, okay. Ecuador here and back, please do that, because this is just, you guys are going to be amazed. This is amazing.
Well, it's a long story. I'll try to make it.
Yeah, I know, it's tough. It's a tough brief.
I wanted to study at Berkeley while I was in Ecuador. I couldn't afford it, and it was an urgent thing to do. But I was kidnapped by the secret police of the government at that time, a right-wing government in Ecuador. And I literally had a week. I came with a one-way ticket to the States. And slowly but surely, I made my way to Berkeley. And as we all know, the Berkeley College is a school that attracts people from all over the world. And I was able to meet a lot of fantastic people first, and musicians as well, from different cultures. I learned a lot of music, a lot of interpersonal relations, and it was a very enriching experience for me. And through this process, I started to work with a lot of Puerto Rican salsa bands, Dominican merengue bands, and after a good chunk of time doing that, I also I started to look for my own voice within that tradition. That's how Mango Blue is born, because I'm not a salsero, you know. I'm from the Andes. I'm from Quito, Ecuador. So I wasn't born and raised with this music. It was something that it's a train I hopped on later on. So I wanted to find my own voice with all these influences. I love jazz. I love rock and roll. I love funk, and Mango Blue was an opportunity for me to bring all these elements together. And with it, I had already met a lot of people in the scene, and I've been really fortunate. The band has about, I don't know, 15 years or more of existence, and I've seen several generations of musicians come by, including some top-line jazz artists like Miguel Zenón, Anat Cohen, Alon Yavnai.
Like you, for example, like you. So you are really into, I mean, you have this jazz series. My understanding is Thursday nights generally. This is a Saturday night performance on March 9th. You can tell us about the series in a minute, Michael. You were totally in the Mango Blue and Alex. That's in great part why they're there Saturday, a week from Saturday, right?
That's right.
What's the allure?
So the allure to his music for me was the first time I saw them, I was like, wow, his music defines everything I wanted in music. It was Latin music, it was funk, it was jazz. It sounded like Steely Dan. They had a saxophone section. So for me, the first time I saw them in about 1996 at Johnny D's in Somerville, for those of you who know the venue.
Sadly, yeah.
I was blown away. And so ever since then, I guess I was a groupie. I saw him. Been in touch with him. Anytime he comes back, we find ways to get him to play wherever I am.
Why'd you leave?
Well, it's a funny story. It's actually, I'm kind of embarrassed, but I lived here.
Oh, then tell us quickly.
Yeah, I lived here for a very long time, and I remember I was in a reunion with some folks, and a guy tells me, "You've been here for a long time," and I go, "Yeah, I've been here for 12, 15, and then I made the math, and it was 25 years. And it was like a bucket of cold water on my head. And I really, my main interest was to be with my parents. They were getting old, and I didn't want to receive that phone call being away. So I dropped everything, and I just went back.
But who are these guys? Do you want to ask who his fellow player?
Let's introduce the band.
I have the pleasure of playing with my compadre, my brother, one of my best friends in the world, Mr. Manolo Mairena from Costa Rica. And we also have Aníbal Cruz, a great Cuban player.
Okay, here it is. Here they are, Manolo, Anibal, and Alex, a mini version of Mango Blue. Take it away.
A song for all the migrants in the world. Vaya. Escucha bien lo que te digo. No sé por qué no quieres ser mi amigo. Vine a esta tierra para trabajar. Sin embargo, tú me quieres desplazar. Mas las semillas hay en todo lado.
Sí, señor.
Porque pagan el precio siempre los honrados.
¿Cómo no?
Yo no te pido tu caridad.
No, señor.
Solo quiero una oportunidad. It's an immigrant nation.
Immigrant nation.
An immigrant nation.
Immigrant nation.
I work hard for my money, so don't you put the blame on me. No quiero aquí un malentendido. Tengo esperanza de que todo aún no se ha perdido. Busquemos juntos una solución, trabajando unido para convivir en comprensión.
Mi gente tiene mucho que ofrecerte.
Sí, señor.
Si tú quisieras, yo puedo ser tu pana fuerte.
¿Cómo no?
Yo no te pido tu caridad, ¿qué va, mister?
No, señor.
Yo solo quiero una oportunidad. It's an immigrant nation.
Immigrant
We live
nation.
in an immigrant nation.
Immigrant nation.
I work hard for my money, so don't you put the blame on me. Oh. Se va. You know well what I'm talking about. Cause your own people, they had to take the same route. I'm not asking for your charity.
No, señor.
All I want is opportunity. It's an immigrant nation.
Immigrant
It's an
nation.
immigrant nation.
Immigrant nation.
Immigrant nation. We
Immigrant
live in an
nation.
immigrant nation.
Immigrant
It's an
nation.
immigrant nation. Don't you
Immigrant
know it's an
nation.
immigrant nation?
Immigrant
I work
nation.
hard for my money, so don't you put the blame on me. Que va.
Just
Absolutely fabulous.
You can catch Alex and his band Mango Blue this Saturday night at the bar Long Live Roxbury. For more info, head to calendar.artsboston.org. That's it for tonight, but come back tomorrow for Talking Politics for our State House reporter Katie Lannon's wide-ranging interview with Governor Maura Healey on everything from housing and Massachusetts' migrant shelter crisis to her plans to protect abortion and IVF access in the state. Plus, a look at a new bill that would temporarily place limits on how long people can stay in state shelters. That and more tomorrow at 7. Thanks for watching. I'm Craig LeMoult. Good night.